And we're back with the Neptilius raid army. So with Neptilius, it has a very high attack stat as mentioned in the Neptilius showcase and slightly lower bulk, but it does have access to Lunker. So all these pals will have Lunker, Legend, Demon God and Serenity, except for the first two in the army, which have Musclehead and then either Legend or Lunker, just to kind of see how they play out with 20% less defense from those. And as we can see just in the start here, I think you can see it, that Thalassonic Laser doesn't seem to be working very well in a raid scenario. I'm not sure if it has anything to do with this specific terrain, but it's something about like the laser hitting the boss and it doesn't do the explosion on the ground. So straight off the bat, we got this little issue with Thalassonic Laser, and it also seems to hit some sort of FPS issues, kind of like Cosmic Meteor and all of those lots of particle types of skills. So Neptilius, as mentioned, not super tanky, pretty big hitbox as well. We're gonna see how it deals against Xenolord. Ryu, still very underleveled, so this test is more about to see how well they will farm IV fruits against Ryu Ultra, and it's mainly gonna be about how fast they kill it. And this is my third army, not counting Chickpea. We got the Herbills, which kind of failed, and then the Finsider, so it's mainly competing with Finsider right now. Then I'm gonna be doing more armies as I manage to get some more peaches, but the peach farm is very long, so we're just gonna see. Probably not gonna do too much of these like big army tests that I've done in the past until they fix a couple of issues, like the Thalassonic Laser here being bugged, and then Rio and all the pals kind of swarming into this group. I could have done something like a rock burst build as mentioned in previous videos, but I didn't want to do that straight off the bat there. So we can see straight here that Neptilius actually had a worse kill time than Finsider Ignis, and that's probably due to this Thalassonic Laser bug, because it does have a very high attack stat. Finsider Ignis does get a lot of bonus from Trust. Herbill got yeeted, so it doesn't really count. So not great for the Rio farm, beaten by Finsider Ignis. So just not a good look for it there, really. But probably due to this weird bug with the Thalassonic Laser. We'll see if they get around to fixing that, or if that's just the way it's going to be working against these raid bosses. And maybe it'll work better in a different raid base, like different terrain. We'll see. So this one, at least he did the little jump without dodging the holy bursts. So not too bad. This is the Xenolord test. Gonna be testing raid armies against Xenolord as well, just to kind of see the kill time here with dealing with ads and stuff like that. As usual, not a perfect test when you don't include the player being a factor, but it does give a general idea of like how much DPS they're outputting. I think all armies should be able to do this. There might be some issues with stuff like Chickpea and Meteor Rain, but most serious armies that are not like meme armies will be able to do this raid by now, especially if you can give them Meteor Rain. So we can see kind of how these do. So there is a drawback for all these raid bosses and legends that don't have access to Meteor Rain, because it's just an extremely good skill against Xenolord, just due to these Xenovaders and stuff like that. The Xenovaders and Xenogars that he summons, they have slightly better stats, like they hit a little bit harder and stuff like that, a little bit more health I think, than just regular pals. So they are something that you do want to deal with. You can also waste a lot of holy bursts if they're not dealt with. You can see that a couple of holy bursts and stuff are going for the ads instead, and holy burst is actually pretty weak against Xenovader. It won't like one-shot them unless they're standing on the edge being hit by it like 2 or 3 times. But overall, it's looking pretty solid here, I would say. Wall Splash maybe decent. I could have maybe gone for another third skill, but I decided to go for this Holy Burst, Thalassonic Laser, Wall Splash. It's just a lot of DPS. You can see they just beat out Finsider Ignis, but maybe it would have looked different if I'd done a couple of more fights. But as I mentioned before, I'm not going to do a ton of fights this patch. I'm going to wait one more patch before I really commit hard to doing a ton of different army tests and testing different skill builds and different passives and attacks and everything, mixing raids and stuff like that. It feels kind of useless to do a lot of like meta stuff and finding out the best pal for one specific patch with some bugs. And we don't even know if the pal pods are intended to work or not yet, so we'll kind of see what the next patch brings, I guess. And then this test against Xenolord Ultra. So the difference between Xenolord and Xenolord Ultra, outside of just the stats, there's a little bit more ads. There's more ad waves, and there's also this added attack he gets with Holy Burst, which is just very strong against these big hitbox pals, and kind of all pals in general. It depends on how much they're swarming him. So you will see, like, this is a pretty good example here, when they're all, like, really clumping up, and that's kind of unique to this patch. This didn't happen the same way in Faebreak. Pals would sort of roam sideways, not really go towards the boss, and the boss would definitely not run into the melee range of all the pals and start dancing around them. See quite a lot of Holy Bursts being wasted around the arena or around the raid base. And Xenolord, there you go, that's the Holy Burst, I believe. Knocking out quite a lot of these Neptilius. So Neptilius suffers from this thing where it's big. And there's a couple of alphas in the mix here as well. So just these big pals. I was hoping that Thalassonic Laser would kind of offset the size. That you would sort of have this Thalassonic Laser, Wall Splash, Holy Burst reaching the stun phases fast enough where Xenolord doesn't really get a lot of attacks off. Which is the case in like the normal fight. You can sort of build your pals around really just bursting him between the stun phases. So it's not always just about pure DPS. Like comparing something like Beam Slicer and Blast Cannon, Beam Slicer is a little bit more burst damage, while Blast Cannon is more sustained DPS. And then Beam Slicer sort of ends up being better just for reaching the first stun phase. Makes pals survive a little bit more. Just a couple of things like that. So it's not always about pure DPS, which is why we really like Meteor Rain, because it deals with the ads. Which is also just about really, you don't want to waste Holy Bursts on Xenovaders, so Meteor Rain takes care of that. So you can see he's about half health here, somewhere around half health, when he starts really knocking out these pals. And funnily enough, this is probably just pure coincidence, but the last survivor is that Neptilius 1, which is the one that doesn't have Lunker. So on paper it shouldn't be tankier than the others, it just happened to be the last one standing. It is what it is. So here, compared to Finsider, Neptilius is winning out by quite a bit, but that's just because Finsider gets completely wiped by Meteor Rain. But it's really just pure coincidence at what time Xenovator decides to use what skill. So this is the second fight I decided to try, just to see if it was bad luck in the first fight. And they looked pretty healthy, I would say, for the start of the fight. He wasn't doing Cosmic Meteor and Meteor Rain too much. Neptilius doesn't really resist a lot of his strong attacks. It will resist like Ignis Rage, Fireball, Flame Funnel. But what you really want to resist is Meteor Rain, Cosmic Meteor, have a small hitbox against Holy Burst. Maybe if the pals spread out a little bit against Stonebeat. Otherwise Stonebeat usually wipes a couple of pals as well. That's more what you're considering. So like having the highest bulk is not always the right answer. And you can see there, the Holy Burst just completely wipes them out. They got less damage done in the second fight. So overall for this raid army, it lost out to Ryu against Finsider. And it kind of just died to Holy Burst and Meteor Rain against Xenolord, even if it doesn't take any sort of burn damage. So a little bit of a disappointment for being one of these legendary pals with a super strong exclusive skill. But hopefully it's just that Thalassonic Laser is bugged right now. So we'll see what the next patch brings. Might revisit this army, or I will revisit this army. And we'll see kind of what happens and what changes. So for now, thanks for watching.